I had to press the button 2 times because the first time I pressed the button, the thing didn't go live. Then when I pressed the button, it said, pretty soon you're going to be live. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Wednesday evening. Welcome to 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. And welcome to the live stream. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. So we've got some fun stuff to talk about tonight. We got a whole bunch of cool things to talk about. The primary subject is we went to, my gosh, we've visited a lot of stores lately. And I mean a lot.
A lot.
In many different states, all the way from Illinois to Florida and everything in between. And in the last 4 weeks, we've done a lot of fish store hopping, spent a lot of money because you've got a lot of aquascapes coming up. We've already done a couple. And so all of that requires wood and rocks and fish and all kinds of stuff. So it's been good. But I thought we'd take some time tonight before we get into the Q&A and just talk about some things that maybe we've learned over the last 4 weeks or so, visiting so many stores in such a short period of time throughout the southeastern half of the United States, or quarter of it at least.
Yeah.
So glad you're here. This is always an awesome time because it's Wednesday evening. We get to hang out with all the other fish nerds that like to hang out and think and talk about fish. So thank you for being here. So announcements, we got some things to talk about today. So first of all, the backdrop area, which looks pretty cool, at least when I'm looking behind and kind of checking it out. You've got, what is that?
Well, I'm just storing, it's kind of my ode to driftwood. So all different types, they're just hanging out back there.
That's right. But the main thing is this week, the theme on both of our channels has been,
mangrove roots.
Mangrove roots. So if you saw the video on Primetime Aquatics on Monday, you did a really cool scape. I liked it quite a bit where you used mangrove roots to kind of redo a tank that needed some help because it was becoming very sparsely, something happened to it.
Yeah.
And then what I thought was cool is today on your channel, the Small Scape, you actually went over the pros and cons of using mangrove roots. So if you haven't checked that out, highly recommend it. The Small Scape, you talk a little bit more about the good, the bad, things to think about when using such driftwood.
You got it.
And then tomorrow, we will have the members only video. Friday ties in very closely to what we're talking about tonight, and that is fish stores. I should have a really cool fish store tour for you on Friday. A store that I think is doing it right, has made a lot of improvements over the last probably 6 months, a year, maybe longer. But there's been a lot of changes at this store, and it's very exciting because it's a local store for me, one that I have gone to for a very long time since I was a ute. Well, maybe not quite a ute, but I was a lot younger back then.
Yeah.
So we've got that coming up, fish store tour on Friday. I promise you, unless you are like a world-renowned fish nerd sort of traveler person, there's probably going to be 1 or 2 fish at this store, at least 1 or 2 that you haven't seen before, because there were a couple where I was like, what is that? And it was really cool. There was a couple really cool fish that I had never seen. And there was a whole bunch of stuff that is just cool in general. So that's what's happening on Friday. And then in your channel, the Small Scape on Saturday. I don't know what you're doing. I'll know what you're doing when I get the video.
You never know what craziness I'm going to be up to on a Saturday.
Yeah, when I get the footage, I'll be like, oh, so that's what's going on. Okay, what do I call this thing? So that's what's happening. Yeah. The other thing is I'm wearing my Green Water Aquarius shirt because I've mentioned this a couple of times, but on Sunday at Bird Haven in Joliet, Illinois, they are having the Green Water Aquarius Society swap. And it's the first swap in the Chicagoland area in probably close to a year and a half. So we're really excited about that. We're going to be there. Hope to see you there as well. For those of you who are thinking about going and are interested in the fish, the fish that we're bringing, fish that we might be selling, you just updated the website. And what's on the website are the fish that we're bringing. We've got the inventories there, the prices. The only thing is, the fish are available for pickup at the swap between 10 a.m. and noon only. So we're not shipping fish. We're not meeting people other places to, meet up and swap the fish or whatever. So what's on the website is strictly for pickup at the Green Water Aquarius Society swap this Sunday at Bird Haven in Joliet from 10 a.m. to noon. So, but the stuff is out there. And if you are thinking about going, I highly recommend, and thinking about any of the fish that we sell, we're going to have the shell dwellers there, multis, similis, we've got cyprichromis, a lot of fish that are really hard to find at pet stores. And based on all the tours we've done, I can pretty much guarantee you that they're going to be a little bit less too. So, but we've got some fish on the website to check out. I already see a super chat coming in. Fishy Biz. Thanks, Drew. Jason, you are the man. Joanna, you are awesome too. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, and that was the other cool thing. If you want to see a different kind of live stream, I was actually on the Fishy Biz live stream on Monday night. It was later in the evening. It was 9 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you want to get a little bit more of a little bit more of live stream fix, check that out. Fish Tank Barn, looking forward to the swap, making the drive from Detroit. I saw that. Thank you very much. Mike, it's going to be nice to see you. It's been a while, so hopefully I'll see you there. And then I'm hoping that you're also going to be at the Chicago Aquashella. I saw somebody come through with a comment saying, hey, who's going to be there? We'll be there. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So we're already starting to see, I'm on one of the planning teams for the Fish Tube booth, and just some of the stuff that is being planned. I know I mentioned this before, but it's going to be fun.
Cool.
There's some new things happening in Chicago that we haven't done before, and I'm excited for it. Really excited. So
my kind of town.
Chicago's your kind of town. Okay, well, and then York Aquarium says, Joanna, that shirt is awesome. So you've got your prime time.
I have one of my Optimus Prime shirts. It's summertime, summer blockbuster time, and Optimus is the coolest.
Even though there hasn't been a Transformers movie in how many years?
There doesn't have to be.
That's okay. Yeah, there doesn't have to be.
They're classics.
That's true.
He will live on.
I suppose so. All right, so shall we get into this thing?
Yeah.
And again, this isn't going to take a lot of time. It's not going to be one of those long, drawn-out subjects that takes like 45 minutes to explain. Just wanted to share with you some of our observations. We've covered this before, so I'm not going into great amounts of detail because we actually did a live stream about what makes... No, we did a live stream. This has actually been a topic for a live stream where we talked about what makes a fish store awesome sort of thing. We did something like that maybe a few months ago. But it was just interesting because having gone to so many fish stores... So to give you an idea of what we're looking at, we went to at least a dozen fish stores over the last 4 weeks or so. And the idea was I wanted to do some more fish store and eventually some more fish room tours because I find them interesting. You often see things you haven't seen in a while or see people keeping fish in a way that you didn't realize could be done. But out of all those stores that we toured, as of right now, I've only got video of 3 of those stores. So the percentage is not that great, right? So we're looking at maybe a 25% of the stores we visited. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I think this is something I'd like to film. And there are a lot of reasons for that. I'm curious to hear what y'all out there are thinking too in terms of what makes a good fish store. Things that really set good ones apart from the ones where you walk in, you're like, yeah, I'm going to walk in here and I'm going to do a quick lap just in case, but we're going to make this quick. So there were a few interesting things that we saw in all of the tours. I don't know if you've got your own like mental notes. I've got some things that I thought were kind of interesting. One of the things, and maybe everybody here can relate, there were some stores that we walked into that were really good, and you'll see those over the next few weeks. But there was one. I'll start out with the best story. We were in a store, and I'm not going to give away the stores or anything because they're all trying. I mean, most of them are trying, right? They're doing the best they can. I'm assuming they're doing the best. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But that being said, we walked into one of the stores, and it was a very small place. So I think one of the things that surprised me when we walked into a few stores, they were very small to the point where I think there is a point at which the square footage just simply isn't going to house enough tanks to be able to supply the variety that the general public is going to require. And we saw a few stores that were maybe the size of a large bedroom, wouldn't you say?
Yep.
And in one of them, it was interesting because it was later in the afternoon, and we walk in, and we had already been to 3 or 4 fish stores, and we walk in. I look over, and there is a person sleeping, just out like a light, sleeping at the cash register. Like there was, I mean, they were out. Like for a minute, I'm like,
there were little Z's.
Yeah, are they okay? Just like head on the hand, out like a light. It was a kind of a small place, and I think maybe half the tanks. See, I don't know if they were maybe in the middle of doing some kind of tank maintenance, but maybe there were I don't even know, 25, 30 tanks at the most. And most of them were 20 longs, maybe some 40 breeders. Some of them had maybe like 25% of the water missing, and there was no lids on some of the tanks. And it just kind of looked like, some of the stores we went into kind of looked like a fish room that somebody just decided, I'm going to move this into a retail space and just sell my fish out of this space. So we walk in, the person is sleeping at the cash register. We're looking at the fish. I think there was actually one pretty decent kind of fish there, but most of the tanks were empty, and meaning that there were no fish in them. And then some of the tanks that had fish in them were kind of like 3/4 of the way full. Like maybe the water evaporated, because it wasn't even like there were hard water stains on the top parts of the tanks, which tells you that maybe it's kind of a habit. Just, the water kind of just evaporated and we just fill it up again when it goes down. So that was one of those stores where I think we were in there for, I don't know, 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Just did kind of a quick look around.
4 minutes, I think. Yeah.
So that was interesting. So I think,
didn't want to wake them up, though,
Yeah, lesson number one, I think, something we learned from that is if someone is ever interested in opening a fish store, or if you're going to a fish store and you're kind of on the newer side and one of the employees is sleeping at the cash register, and most, half the tanks are like 3/4 of the way full, there might be a place you can just be like, you know what, I might go ahead and go someplace else. So that was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add before I go on? Because I got a whole bunch of stuff in my brain.
Well, I think whether or not you see tanks that are pristine, or if you see ones that are not, really they're kind of poorly maintained, either which way, it always makes you want to go home and do a little cleanup on your tank.
Yeah. Makes you,
for me,
that's what it does. It makes you want to maintain and just kind of.
Yeah, just, it's like, I don't know, going to the Container Store or something, and then you want to come home and organize your stuff.
Well, I'm going to start sending you to the Container Store more often.
Good luck.
Hey, yeah. I'll get you gift cards. I'm going to get Joanna gift cards for
the garage
the Container Store. Yeah, the Container Store, or like Walmart, but it can only be used in aisle 12 where all the totes are.
I would love that.
That'd be great.
Aisles
and then I'll just place them strategically around the house. Subliminal messaging.
Put your stuff in here.
Yeah, right. Just already pre-label them, but leave them empty, and then be like, oh, that's just where all that goes. Okay. That would be pretty good.
If it were only that simple.
If it were only that simple. The other thing, now I think about it too, is there were actually a couple stores when we walked in. Have you ever walked into a pet store and it's kind of like the pet store doesn't quite know what it wants to be? And I don't know how else to explain it. We walked into one that I can remember specifically, where we walked in, and it wasn't a very big place.
No.
But it had kind of like a row of tanks, not a very big row, and then it had animals, like mammals, small animals, and then it had reptiles over here. But the problem I saw is when you walked in, and I'm mostly focused on the fish, I'm looking at these tanks and there really wasn't much selection. And fish that probably should have been purchased in bigger groups, it was weird because they were actually spread out amongst different tanks. Like let's say you wanted, I don't even know, tetras of some kind, and you want to do, okay, I want to do a half a dozen or a dozen tetras. Well, there might have been like one of the tetras was in here, one was 3 tanks down, there were 3 over here. Just kind of somehow they wound up in different tanks and in different areas. But the problem that I saw was because the space wasn't very large relative to all the types of pets they wanted to provide to their customers, it was almost like they didn't do anything really well. Right? Like if it was just a fish store, they would have had enough space to do the fish, have enough like hardscaping and equipment to really support the hobby. But because they went into like 4 different directions, I don't know if you noticed, but at that store they had no substrate. They had a couple filters. They still had a little bit in terms of filtration. No substrate, no rocks, a little bit of driftwood. Fish food, I don't remember. Maybe just a very small little area, of fish food. But then I'm like, okay, well, maybe they specialize in reptiles. So I'm looking in the reptile area. I'm like, okay, they had a few reptiles. And then there wasn't really much to support that either. And so they had just a few cans of food and maybe one kind of enclosure for the reptiles and almost nothing for the mammals. So it was just kind of strange that there was no directions. It just seemed to me if you're going to be a pet store, then focus on the pets. If you're going to be a fish store and you have a limited amount of space, it might be better just to kind of focus on fewer animals.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if anybody have something like that near you where it's like, man, if they could just better utilize the space, they'd be in good shape. You know, you got anything? Because I got a good one.
In regards to that, no.
Probably the one of the more interesting things I saw, and it's interesting when you walk into a pet store and you just kind of look at them. And we walked into one, and the tanks were older. You could tell that the tanks were a little bit older. The stands, so a lot of them were just 2x4 and cylinder, like the cylinder blocks, right? And which is fine, I suppose. It's okay. I probably would prefer if I'm in a retail space. I personally would probably want to spice it up a little bit, I think. But whatever, that's fine as long as the fish are healthy, and they were decently healthy. But the interesting thing is we walk into one part of this fish store, and I notice part of the rack is got tanks on it and the whole cinder block thing. And the other part of the rack is kind of just resting on other stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And the other stuff I wouldn't qualify it as entirely sturdy for the amount of tanks that were on this rack. And I remember looking at you, I'm like, pointing, I'm like, look at that. I'm like, let's just not stand here because I don't know how long that rack is going to remain upright before.
That stand leg, say it was like 2 inches wide, 3 inches wide, only 1 inch of it was on like the tote
on the surface of a thing. Yeah.
A little alarming there, yeah.
Yeah, it was a little crazy. That was one where I was like, wow, man, that's really something. Probably one of the things that really stood out though is that we went into a couple stores where we were really surprised at the disparity when it comes to pricing. Not even between one state and another, but even within the same region, where you could walk into a store that's reasonably priced. And maybe, so for instance, you've got younger peacock cichlids, 15, 20, 25 bucks a piece that are starting to show some color. Maybe your Mbuna cichlids are, I don't know, $5 to $8. But then we went to one store where the Mbuna cichlids were 40 or 50 bucks a piece. Now they were full grown, but that's insane.
Yeah.
The peacock cichlids could go 60, 70 bucks. There were hybrid cichlids where it just said cichlid. I'm looking at these things. I'm like, you could kind of tell what they probably were, even if they were hybridized. And you're looking like cichlid. They were big. I'll grant that. Like 75 bucks. I'm like, I just bought a cichlid, $75. I have no idea what this thing is. It's a hybrid of some kind. So the pricing in some cases was pretty crazy. So yeah, those were just, I didn't want to take up a bunch of time. Do you have anything you wanted to mention in your
well, sometimes even I'm the one who likes to do the aquascaping, so you can probably put me into like the world's worst aquarium store. That's fine. I will probably find something that I want. Like one store had very small pieces of driftwood, which are actually hard to find. So for nano tank people, that's really fun. It's really fun. And even for some of these tanks that are smaller, you can always get a kind of escape inspiration. Mm-hmm. There you go. So no matter where you're at, you can find some inspiration. There's my tip.
That reminded me too of one of the reasons why. It was actually kind of a shame. There was probably at least one or two more stores that I would have considered filming. And I'm actually kind of shocked that they ran the store this way, but there was no lights on the tanks. They were just using the lights from the room on a significant portion of their tanks. And I thought, wow, that's... If you really want to show off the fish and how nice they look, and you've got just the room lights that are showing off the fish, and you're kind of looking in there and you're peeking in there like, what's actually in there?
Why are all the fish brown?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so some of them, it was kind of interesting that the tanks themselves didn't have lights. And I get it. That can be an expense. But, I mean, you're trying to show off the fish. It might be worth it, to just kind of be able to see them.
Yeah.
So I got a couple super chats here. DMN DDog02. Thank you so much. Hi guys, I have a new 180 gallon tank. I was wondering what combinations of South American cichlids you would recommend. Well, I can tell you what I would do. If I had a 180-gallon tank, I know for some people, 180 gallons, like, wow, I can put some really big cichlids in there. You've got the Oscars, the Jack Dempseys, the Green Terrors, the Texas cichlids, and you can do all that. Some of them are a little bit aggressive, and so sometimes you might get that aggression that is undesirable, kind of stressful. But if I had a 180-gallon and I was looking at cichlids, I would probably put in a group of Geophagus. So pick out your favorite type of Geophagus, whether that's Tapajos, Weimilleri, Altafrons, Cernamensis. There's a bunch of different types of Geophagus. Maybe even instead of that, Echeric, these Hecali, like the albinos we have. I did a video. Ours are pretty small right now, but a group of those would be absolutely stunning. You could combine them. We've combined them with Severums before. Now, of course, you can't really plant the tank like that once you add the Severums for the most part. But you've got like we've got the red spot gold Severums. The red shoulder Severums are really, really nice looking. So you could do that kind of a combination, or maybe you could do the Geophagus with some angelfish. That would also be cool, and it would be relaxing, and they're not so overly aggressive where the fish are chasing each other around. Plus, everybody's got their own thing, and it's okay if you like those other types of fish, but I tend not to like a lot of the larger South American cichlids in a larger tank if I at all care about what the tank is going to look like. So if the nice thing about the Geophagus, for the most part, angelfish, Severums, they don't really dig much. So that's kind of nice. They don't stir up as much stuff. So I like that. That's what I would do if I had 180 gallons. Some type of Geophagus and Severum combination, or a Geophagus or angelfish. In place of the Geophagus, you could do, like I said, the Echeric, these Hecali, either the standards or the albinos. Both are gorgeous fish. You could do electric blue Acara in that mix, which would be nice because they're a relatively mellow fish as well. That adds that vibrant blue. And in our 125, those electric blue Acara, you can see them from across the room. They're really pretty. Love them a lot. Oh, Shelly, thank you so much for the super chat. Plan for a pair of Geophagus. Speaking of Geophagus, plan for a pair of Geophagus. Would like to breed. Thinking about a 55-gallon, but not much depth. Suggestions. Geophagus species suggestions would enjoy pink color Altafrons. Plan to name Harry and Sally. Nice.
Aww. Love it.
For a breeding pair, that'll work. If that's going to be the only fish you have in the tank, it's going to be fine for a long time. The Altafrons do get fairly large. So the Altafrons that we have in our 150 right now is probably 8 or 9 inches. So like you mentioned, that 12.5-inch depth isn't a lot, and they will look a little bit more cramped and probably won't grow to that. They're already slow growers, but I don't know if they're going to get to that full size and their full potential in a 55. So if it were me in a 55 and I wanted a pair, maybe I would stick with something on the smaller side, like the Geophagus Tapajos. We had a male and 3 females in that tank. If I could do that again, I would just put the pair in that tank because the other 2 females really spent most of their life on the other side of the tank. But the Geophagus Tapajos don't get nearly as large and are still really, really pretty fish and would work well in a 55-gallon. So that would be what I would do.
And then you can branch out and get a Jess and Marie, too.
All right, but in a different tank because you don't want 2 of them in 2 pairs in a 55 is too much.
Different
fish fan. 20-gallon long. Thank you so much for the super chat. Will chocolate gouramis work well in a 20 long with platies and guppies and neons and Corys? Thank you for your wise advice. Well, thank you so much for being here and for the super chat. Chocolate gouramis, I don't know, they're probably a little bit larger than I like to put in a 20 long. If I were doing a 20 long, I think the largest I personally might go is a dwarf gourami, and probably try to find a female dwarf gourami. There's lots of choices there, so you can do the powder blues. I think that's what we have in your 20 long, right? It's a powder blue. Mm-hmm. And they've got 3 or 4 different varieties. Those could be an option. We just picked up a sunset thick lip gourami, which I think is cool. Yeah. The honey gouramis are fine. They've got a couple different varieties there, but I might go a little bit smaller just because I think you'll have a better experience with it. So that's kind of how I would roll with that. Let me see here. What's so funny?
Slam Boy, what do you mean of fake Shark Week? What's fake Shark Week? I celebrate Shark Week. I actually have decoration. Yeah, I do, because I
learn
have
something
my
new
shark
every day.
Stuffed animal and my
shark
monster truck.
Right, in your car.
Yeah.
Yep. That's pretty awesome.
Back of my phone here.
That's right. So is that going to go away after Shark Week is done?
Well, I actually put the shark on for Aquashella. nobody really got my joke, but
nobody
okay,
did.
I got my joke.
Let's see here. Can anybody tell me anything about Sajicas? Are they troublesome? Makia, thanks for being here. No, I wouldn't say that they're troublesome. We had a group in a 40 breeder, and we actually bred them a few times in that 40 breeder, and the pair bred, even though there was another, I think we had at least 6 or 7 in that 40 breeder. It was decently planted, had a lot of Italian val in that tank, some decent rock work, so everybody kind of found their own space, but I did not find them particularly aggressive, and just a pair somewhere without another, part of the group to deal with. I thought they were pretty good. They do dig a little bit. They'll dig around rock work. So our Sajicas, they found this nice little rock caverny area. They dug a little hole around that and that's where they would breed. But even protecting the fry, they kind of kept their fry to one side of the 40-gallon breeder, and the rest of the fish stayed on the other half of the tank, but they really didn't chase the other fish around as much as some other cichlids do. So yeah, I like them a lot. They're a great fish. All right, let's see here. Scrolling on down. What's
Shark Week is in July? I thought it was August.
Shows, yeah, and you're celebrating a week. You don't even know what month it's in?
Yeah, because it's in August.
Yep. Sean said, going back to the fish store thing, knowledge and customer service is what is most important to me. Yeah, that's a big thing. I will say that I did not get a feeling in any of the stores that I walked into, except for the one where the customer service was sleeping. I think all of them demonstrated a decent amount of knowledge. And I spend a lot of time in fish stores when we finally go, except for the one where the sleeping thing. But if there's something to look at, I tend to just kind of wander around and look at the fish. And I do catch a lot of conversations. And I will say, I really have to hand it to those of you who have been in the pet service sort of industries. For those of you who work at the Petcos, the PetSmarts, the local fish stores, I was in one of the stores, and there was a young lady there who was working there, and a woman walked in and she's like, I want a shark. She's like, I want that shark. And she pointed to a bala shark. And the bala shark in the store was only 2 or 3 inches or so. And the lady was nice, and she's like, well, what size, what kind of fish do you have? And she's like, well, I've got guppies and the small tetras. I think she said ember tetras. She's like, well, what size tank do you have? 20-gallon. And so she kind of had to say, hey, the ballast sharks get really large. 20 gallons not going to work. And you could see the woman was getting frustrated, because then she went, well, I want this shark. And she pointed to a red tail shark. So we're going from, at least in terms of aggression, from bad to worse. And of course, now the lady that worked there, the young woman, she's like, okay, well, these also get pretty aggressive, and they can get to 5-6 inches. I'm thinking, no, they can go 7 or 8, at least the ones that I had.
Yeah.
But anyway, she was really patient with the customer, and it was but there was 3 or 4 things, and it reminded me of how much people have to deal with. And they're dealing with those questions every single day, multiple times a day. And it's hard because you deal with that day after day after day, and the customers are getting mad at you. They're getting mad at you because all of a sudden they think that you are preventing them from having the tank that they want and the fish that they want, when really all they're trying to do is steer customers clear of really bad decisions. And I'm thinking to myself, I couldn't do that. I don't think if somebody flipped a magic switch and we had a fish store, I don't know if I could do that day after day and answer those same questions. I could do that, but what I don't think I could be able to do well is handle the negativity that comes along with that. So it's got to be draining. So I really hand it to those of you, and I'm sure it's that way in pretty much all retail. I haven't ever worked retail, but I'm sure for people who have to answer questions and tell customers no, or hey, maybe this isn't a good idea, and now you're the bad guy. It's got to be bad. So Shanna says, I like it when the staff pays enough attention to their tanks to notice problems and put not for sale on them until they are cured. That's a great point, because we walked into a couple, one in particular, where I like to look. Here's a pro tip for you. Whenever you go to a pet store, I like to look at their live bearers, especially their mollies, their platies, their guppies, because in my experience, some of these fish don't have the best genetics when they're being bought from a fish farm. But especially the mollies. I walked into one store and they had 3 separate tanks filled with mollies. I would say 75% of the mollies in those 3 tanks were doing the death wobble. What I call a death wobble is they're just kind of doing the shimmy at the top of the tank. They're dead. They're goners. They are going to be goners inside of 2 or 3 days. And I really don't like the fact that at that point, they're not isolating those fish or putting them in a quarantine, even though they're probably not going to make it, because at that point, internal organs are most likely shutting down. There was no evidence of ick or anything. Sometimes they'll do that when there's ick. But when you see that and you've got 3 tanks of mollies that are not looking good, some of the platies are all kind of cramped up in there. You can kind of see the rear, the tail fin is kind of crunched up. It's like those fish are not doing well at that point. But the places that we went to where we filmed, that's one of the criteria that we have is when I bring you a fish store tour, I am not sending people to stores where the prices are insane, where I saw fish, or I know from experience there's going to be a history of fish that are probably not going to be great, or the customer service is terrible, or I don't do that. I won't do tours, even though in some cases there are some stores that on the surface might look really great. And then if you are more familiar with those places, you realize this is not a place I feel comfortable sending people to. So, yeah. You got anything?
Clint Walker's in the house.
Clint, what's up, man?
What's up, Clint?
Clint, are you going to Chicago Aquashella? I can't remember if you said you were going or not. So, hope to see. You should. That's right. And Mike, if you're still here, I'm wondering, are you going to make the trip back down in August? Because you're only in Michigan. Cheryl says, Joanna, earlier today I said I had choya wood in my 10-gallon for the hope of where baby shrimp could hide. Yeah. Right before this live stream, I found one. It's not so little already. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, choya wood's a really good really good thing for shrimp.
It sure is.
I'm surprised you haven't done a choya wood thing, because
recently I had seen some somewhere and I was thinking, you're lucky, because I was just
I'm surprised. I remember that store. I remember that store, and I was thinking, I wonder if the back of the truck's going to be filled with this stuff now. Yeah. Luckily, it wasn't yet. Rosie Posey, hi, it's my first live. I'm new to the hobby and want to say thank you for all the great content as a newbie. I appreciate you. Well, thank you so much for being here. Glad you're here. This is a great place to come and hang out with other people who are into fish. It's just a cool place to be.
It's really fishy.
This is a really that was pretty bad. This is a really fishy place, like today in the video. I don't even think, did you even notice that you said that about, I don't know, there was some pun you used about wood. It was pretty funny.
No.
Let's see here.
Did you get my pun about wood?
I did.
Yeah.
Katie says, I'm in Milwaukee area too. Love America Aquaria. Aquatics Unlimited is good, but in my opinion, not as personable and a little expensive. America Aquaria. I've never heard of that. No. The other place, if you're in the Milwaukee area, to check out is the Fish Factory. So the two that we generally go to up there are Aquatics Unlimited, which we like a lot, and the Fish Factory is also another one that we check out when we go up there from time to time. So, but I hadn't heard of America Aquaria, so I can't speak to how cool they are, but glad you like it. Yeah, Milwaukee is a place that has a decent number of fish stores and some pretty good ones up there.
Yeah. Oh, Jess is here from Maine Sales Fur and Fins.
Cool.
Hey, Jess.
Nice to see you.
Say hi to the puppers for me.
I will respond to you. I got your message. I don't check Facebook Messenger all the time, so I just saw it today before the live stream. I'm like, we'll figure that situation out here when probably after the live stream or tomorrow. I'll send you a message.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Snail Team 6 says, I miss drive-ins. So do we.
We had a drive-in, maybe a mile from our house, and one of the best memories is back when the drive-in, they just closed it in 2019.
Yeah.
And they should have stayed open for 2020 because it would have been perfect. They would have just been raking in the dough. And now there's rumors. I think just teasers like they're going to reopen it again, but it wasn't far from our house. And we had 2 different Jeeps at the time, your 4-door and my older 2-door. And we'd take the 2-door sometimes, and we basically left the roof and the doors off all summer and just parked it in the garage. It was fun going there, because it was still light out in the summertime. But then there were some nights where we would come home and it would be
freezing,
50 degrees or 45 degrees. And the drive-in, after you see the double feature, or sometimes they do a triple feature in the middle part of summer, it'd be pretty cold.
It was cold.
But it was still fun. Let's see here. I'm going to scroll down. Uh-oh. Genesee says, can someone please help me?
Uh-oh.
We're going to try. I have aquarium snail leeches. Oh, this isn't, I don't know. I don't think I've ever had those. They have destroyed my snails and shrimp. Any advice on how to get rid of them other than breaking down the tank? Are you sure they're leeches or are they planaria? So the planaria have these triangular heads, and if you have your phone and you can go ahead and just kind of take a video and just really enlarge it, or even a picture, the planaria have a triangular head. Those can be pretty rough on shrimp. Although I haven't ever really noticed them do any damage to snails. So maybe I haven't had any experience with leeches in a tank, so I don't know if that's that or if it's the planaria, but maybe double check. If they've got a triangular head, most likely it's planaria. And then that's not an easy thing to do. The way to keep the planaria in check is often, if you can, trying to do a gravel vac. So if you're getting shrimp food and stuff, especially if you have gravel and it's getting into the gravel itself, that can create some problems with detritus worms and planaria. All right, let's see here.
Finn Wiggles was here.
Finn Wiggles, hey, Finn what's Wiggles. Up? Glad you're here. All right, let's see. I'm scrolling. So you know how I do this. I just kind of scroll, and I scroll slow. A lot. Yeah. Well, yeah, then it gets stuck because I'm not caught up with the chat. So I'm kind of back. Sean says, watching and learning from Primetime Aquatics got me inspired, and it's a fire under me to get back into keeping after being out of the hobby for a few years. It is really fun to, if you've been out for a little while, everything is kind of new again. And the thing I love about fish keeping the most, and maybe some of you can relate, you can't exhaust fish keeping. I don't think there is a way, and I've been doing it now for 40 bunch of years, almost 42 years now, and there's still things that I haven't done, and I think that's always going to be that way because there's so many different species of fish. There are things that you could do, go off onto the planted side. You've got cichlids, you've got live bears, you've got all these different types of fish, different community settings. Then you've got the different types of aquascapes, different size tanks. Maybe you want to branch off, and as you get more familiar with fish, like, okay, now I want to try to make a self-sustaining ecosystem, or now I want to have a I don't even know, some kind of an aquaponics system. Or in worst case is you venture off to the other side of fish keeping, saltwater. We haven't done that. Not advocating it, but it's endless. And then you could really go off and start doing like paludariums, because it's still fish keeping, only with other things included. So it's literally and then if you get into fish breeding, oh my gosh, you could literally it's a never-ending awesomeness. That's why I love it. Pompeii Ranch, how many discus in a 75? Well, it's been a long time since I've kept discus, so I'm not a discus expert by any stretch of the imagination. In a 75, I mean, they get pretty stinking big. So long term, I'm not sure how long you're going to want to keep the discus in a 75, even if you had a group. See, I don't want to answer that question because I'm not familiar enough with what size they start breeding and then how they act when they breed. If they're similar to angelfish, then maybe once you have a pair, you have to move the other ones out. If they're not breeding as much, then maybe it's okay. But to me, though, if I were doing discus, I would probably want at least a 6-foot tank, and maybe a 90 is fine for a 4-foot, a little bit taller. But I just see it working best in 125s or greater. Finn Wiggles, thank you so much for the Jumpin' Man #1 fan. Thank you. Really appreciate it. Glad you're here. So let's see here. Snail Team 6, tips for feeding, multi-fry. I know you know. Thanks. I just make it up as I go along, man. The multis. What we do, and they breed like crazy, and we get a decent amount of fry survival. So for feeding, the ideal situation is live baby brine. So we feed that twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. And I've done videos on how to make your own live baby brine thing. It's basically free when you've got a 1-liter bottle. We use a turkey baster now just to kind of, after everything settles, to suck out the live baby brine. I don't worry about a little bit of the brine water going into our fish tanks, especially with multis, because they can withstand the salt just fine without any issues. And it's such a small amount. But we kind of feed it twice a day, once in the morning, once at night. And of course, we put the flakes in. So what I do is I'll put flakes in, or whatever I'm going to feed them, micro pellets, sometimes bloodworms, frozen brine shrimp. I'll put all that in first so the adults get pretty full. Then I'll go back and I'll feed the live baby brine because the adults will still eat it. They love it. But they're not going to go after it as voraciously because they've already eaten the other stuff first. So that's my tips for you on how to maximize pretty much all shell dweller fry. Mm-hmm. What you got?
Let's see here. Dave from Iowa says, I have a local fish store with great selection and well cared for fish, but clutter in the aisles like buckets, carts, and merch. So I can't get through the aisles. They should all be accessible.
Yeah.
They should all be accessible. There is a width that's appropriate for
3
all
feet.
Aisles that everybody can get through, especially when they start cluttering up. Yeah. They just hurt themselves, and yeah, then you can't go look at their cool stuff, and they're lost.
Yeah, and that's, I don't think we saw too many really cluttered fish stores in our extravaganza over the last 4 or 5 weeks or so, but it is a turnoff when there's just a mess. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. There are going to be times when they get deliveries and they're kind of staging things. That's perfectly normal. But when you walk into a place time after time and there's stuff everywhere, if that were me and I owned that fish store, I would be finding employees that could keep that straightened up or maybe work in another place not associated with me. So,
alrighty then.
Freshwater Facet. Also, Joanna, thanks for the comment back about adding additional hardscape and plants to help encourage more activity with my fish. Totally worked.
See, they get a little cozy in the cone there, and they're just really, really happy. And wait, I just saw another comment that I was going to read.
Okay.
From you. Let's see. Last week you mentioned the Greenwater Aquarius Society swap coming up Sunday. Yep. Let's see. Do you know if they will have any driftwood plants or rocks? I may have to make the hour trip. Gosh, I sure hope so.
Yeah, so, and I can't specifically speak for this one because sometimes the vendors change, so I don't want to be like, oh yeah, 100% it's going to be there. What I can tell you is in the past, there's always been a very good selection of plants. There are 3 or 4 vendors at least that just, they bring a lot of plants. And there are usually at least 1 or 2 tables that have driftwood and or rocks. The rocks, maybe not as much. Rocks I usually see a lot more at the GCCA swaps, but plants for sure, driftwood most likely, rocks maybe. No matter what, you're probably going to see those things for less than what you'd normally pay for retail. The plants for sure. I mean, the plants they're usually a great deal. Yeah. A really great deal. Let's see here. Whipswirl says, hey, at Primetime Aquatics, I'm a skosh late, but I made it. What exactly is a skosh?
It's a little bit more than a smidge.
All right. So, I mean, if you were to equate that to minutes, is that like 6 minutes and 75 seconds?
Well,
6 minutes, 75 seconds, I think is what it is.
8:43, so.
Yeah.
Hey, what kind of food are you talking there, Whip? Come on.
Oh, no, we're not doing that right now. I just bought a lot of aquarium co-op supplies. I'm going with a sand substrate in the 75-gallon tank. Do you think just the root tabs and easy green would be viable for plant growth in my tank? That's what I use. Yeah. So we do a combination of root tabs and the easy green, and it works good. The easy green, just take it easy, especially if you don't have a lot of plants yet, because you can get a little bit of algae. So you just want to, I often kind of dial it back at first, especially if I don't have a heavily planted tank and I don't have a lot of column feeders, but root tabs for anything so if you've got crypts or jungle val or stuff that's going to be rooting itself fairly well in the tank, that's where the root tabs are for. And then the liquid fertilizers are for anything that's going to be mostly column feeders, a lot of your floating plants, your stem plants, that kind of thing.
All right, just so you know, IBSam7, thank you very much, mentioned that there's a vendor list on the website.
Yes, thank you. That's absolutely true. That would have been an important thing for me to mention when I was talking about the Greenwater Aquarius Society. Yes, if you go to Greenwater Aquarius Society something. I don't know if it's .com or .org. I forget. But anyway, if you find Greenwater Aquarius Society, there is a thing where it says swap. The vendor list is there. You'll see our stuff, and creative pet keeping is going to be there as well.
Is she?
Yep. I hope so. She's sharing a half a table with us.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So she's got
Daniel
stuff that
too?
she's bringing. I believe Daniel's going to be there. Yep.
Party.
So yeah, they've got a list of, and they're usually not an exhaustive list. They'll just be like bringing plants, bringing cichlids, bringing.
Banana?
Some of them are, I don't know, but some of them are a little bit more extensive in terms of their list. But there's always a variety. The Greenwater stuff. There's always a variety of stuff. So it'll be fun.
Here's a question for you.
Okay.
This is from York Aquarium. Speaking of mollies, what usually causes the death wobble?
So there's a couple things when you see the death wobble in fish at a pet store. One is it depends on where they bought them from. There's a couple different ways that mollies can be bred. Sometimes they breed them in brackish water, especially if they're coming from Asia. Sometimes they're using brackish type water as part of their farms. And so that works out really well for the mollies while they're there. And then they wind up in fresh water when they get here. And sometimes some of the fish can't handle that adjustment period going from brackish to fresh water, and that causes some internal issues. The other reason why you often see that death wobble is they're sick. They've got some type of bacterial infection, or very commonly when it comes to disease, ick. And mollies, platies are one of the first fish that you'll see when you have a sick tank. When they start to clamp up a little bit, so if you bring fish home and they're clamping up a little bit, it could be the conversion from one water source to another. Or if you've got ick in the tank, sometimes they're one of the first ones. Before they show spots, they start to do that little bit of clamping thing, keeping their fins close to their sides, and then the tail fin kind of crunches down a little bit. The way to get around that, so for us, we buy mostly all of our mollies, like the mollies that we're bringing to the swap, we bred them all. I mean, they've grown up in front of the camera. You've seen them. They're in our 50-gallon lowboy. Those are the ones that we are bringing. There's no special secret strain. We're pulling them out of the 50-gallon lowboy, that planted tank, and bringing them to the swap. So they have been born and bred in Chicago water. They haven't been bred in brackish and then trying to convert them back to fresh water. So we got those, and we've gotten a lot. The most success we've had with our live bears are the live bears that we've bought from people who locally bred them in the same water that we have. So that's some advice. Oops, hold on. Things are jumping around on me now. I was almost caught up, and then everything went crazy. All right, let's see here. Paul says, at Primetime Aquatics, I keep discus in a 120. That's a good tank, 120. Both 120s are fine. So if you've got the 4-foot 120 or the 5-foot 120, they actually come in two different sizes.
That's cool.
I mean, I'm sure they come in more sizes than that, but that's the two most common. You know what's really cool? One of the things I did really like, and this, when it comes to fish stores, I just thought about this. There is one, when we walk in there, the most exciting thing that we see really isn't the fish. They keep an incredible inventory of fish tanks, like fish tank sizes.
Yeah.
I saw one that I had not seen in a while. Do you remember the 4-foot 110-gallon? That's a cool tank. So it's the same footprint as the 75 and the 90. So the 75 is 4 feet by 18 and a half, and I think maybe somewhere around 21 or 22 inches tall. Then you got the 90, same length and width, but it's maybe 24, I think, inches tall, somewhere around there, 24, 25. The 110, still 4 feet by 18 and a half, but it's like 30 inches tall. I don't know. I probably wouldn't get it because you know me and tall tanks. I don't really like having to reach down there and do the stuff, but I was thinking, man, that is kind of cool. So if you had angelfish, severums, discus, that'd be kind of interesting. You've definitely got a lot of height there. Probably the biggest issue would be filtering a tank like that because it's so tall, making sure that you have the returns and the what you would call it, the sucker upper part that's deep enough for the tank. That's the technical term. I hope you enjoyed it. Hold on, I saw a good question here. I did see one. Something about Snail Team 6. How can you store live brine if I make too much? Don't make too much. You can put it in the fridge. It'll survive for a while. I don't do it a lot, so I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to survive, but I have made some, put it in the fridge, kind of slows them down a little bit, and then fed it out. I think the longest I've gone is 6 hours. I'm pretty sure it will go maybe 12. But the nice thing about live baby brine is you can pretty much make whatever volume you want. So I just take a 1 liter bottle, cut the bottom off, take another 1 liter bottle, cut it about halfway down and shove the first part up. I have a video, so just watch the video. But basically I make this homemade 1 liter bottle thing so it can hold up to a liter of water. couple tablespoons of salt, and then 1 teaspoon of brine shrimp. Throw it on a bubbler. Our fish room is already kicking at 82 degrees, so that's a pretty decent temperature. 24 hours later, it's ready to go. I try not to go much longer than 24 hours because once you get past that 24-hour mark, at least at our temperatures, the live baby brine starts to use up all of its nutrients for growth, and it's not as nutritious for the fish. But that's how I do it. And if I wanted to do less, then I can just shrink that down to, okay, I'm going to do a half a liter. And I'm only going to put in 1 scoop of salt. I'm only going to put in a half a teaspoon of brine. If I need less than that, I can go even further down. So it's probably best just to make 2 of those little homemade hatcheries and then just make sure you have the stuff fresh. What's up?
All right. Simply Sierra says, let's see, I'm starting a Betta sorority in a 5-gallon. How many should I put in there? 1.
In a 5?
1.
Yeah, 1. I very rarely see the Betta sororities work, and then I wish Kasha was here because she could pipe in on this. She's a Betta expert. We're more Betta keepers than that. She's bred lots and lots of Bettas, and we talk about that sometimes. Betta sororities can work. I know John and Lisa have had pretty decent success, but they've been keeping fish for a very long time. They understand dynamics. And so if you are someone who's used to breeding Bettas and used to working with them, you can kind of get the female Bettas young enough and in the right setup in a large enough tank to make it work. Like we were at one fish store, they had, it was probably a 75-gallon?
Yeah.
And they might have had, 30 in there. And that seemed to be working. I didn't see a lot of finnipping. And I don't know how long they were in there. It might have only been a few days.
Right.
So, but at least what I saw, it was working. When I talked to Kasha from Creative Pet Keeping, for her, I know she's, a lot of times it hasn't worked out. So it really is something that it takes some practice and dedication in a large tank. I personally wouldn't try it in anything less for me than a 75. Now, maybe people have gotten it to work in a smaller tank than that, but I personally don't have the desire to try it in anything less than a 75. Let's see. Nadia says, Joanna, I need Betta advice. Diamond Eye is, lost it. Diamond Eye is slowly making our beloved blue marble peanut go blind.
Oh.
What can I do? Super sad to see 5-gallon lushly planted.
Oh.
I always check water quality. So just make sure that no ammonia, no nitrates less than 20 parts per million. You said you've got a really heavily planted tank, so I doubt that's an issue. Also, what is the age? Because we've had really good luck with some Bettas and really bad luck with others. And when you keep a lot of them, you start to realize, well, I'm keeping all these fish basically the same way. Some of them really thrive, and some of them, they're not even lasting. Some of these store-bought Bettas, we're lucky to get 8 months out of them before some of them just are like gone. Now, granted, there are a lot of people who can keep those Bettas alive 5-6 years, and we have done that. Mm-hmm. Clear Bob's over there. Wasn't Clear Bob a Petco Betta?
And no, he was not
no,
Petco
Clear Bob.
or PetSmart.
Okay, so he was
Clear Bob and his brother Red Bob. They're not brothers, but they're both named Bob, so they're brothers.
But we've had some really good luck, some not. So I know I'm not really answering your question. Check the nitrates. If it's low, I mean, I hesitate to say start throwing meds at it because you don't know what's causing it. So sometimes the meds just stress the fish out even more. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see here. Carolyn says, my life is so complicated. I think my big tank has Columnaris disease. Sad face, not sure how to spell Columnaris. Yeah, I haven't had to deal with it. The people who have generally use a dewormer, which is, I mean, it can work. So can you discuss Columnaris disease briefly? Thank you for the super chat. I haven't had to deal with it, so I don't like to talk in detail about something that I'm just telling you what other people have done. But that being said, I think it's mostly a dewormer that people use, but I don't know the concentration that people use to successfully treat it. If somebody here has successfully treated it, please feel free to help Carolyn out.
It's like a parasite?
Yeah, it's a parasite that it can be difficult to treat, and there's not a lot of store-bought fish medications from what I know of that can really take care of it efficiently. So I wish I had a better answer for you. Bones, can you use play sand? Sure. For a substrate, there's a couple different things you can do with substrate. One is if you're looking for a cheap alternative to store-bought substrate, store-bought sand, you can use play sand. You can use pool filter sand. At least for the places that sell it around us, the pool filter sand traditionally has been a little bit of a larger grain, which has made it easier to maintain. And if you're doing like, kind of taking the gravel vac, you're not going to go necessarily into the sand, but even if you're kind of like taking the gravel vac and whirling it above the surface, it doesn't suck it up quite as easily. Where the play sand that I have seen, at least around here, was a finer grain and would most likely get sucked up a little bit more by a gravel vac. The other thing to consider is both of them are going to take extensive cleaning. And I think the pool filter sand is a little bit easier to rinse because if you don't rinse that stuff, your tank will stay cloudy for
ever.
Yeah, really, really, really long time. Yeah. All right, let's see here. Scroll down. Uh-oh, I'm pretty sure.
Carlos is here.
Carlos
Fish
is in the house. What's up, man? Glad you're here. Whips World, thank you so much for the super chat. No food talk tonight unless someone else brings it up, Jason. What's your stance on stunting a fish's growth? Is it really something that happens if the available space is a bit tight? Jags in a 40. That's a great question. And the answer is yes, it does happen. I've seen it happen. I've done it, unfortunately. Last week I talked about, or actually I think it might have been in Fishy Business live stream on Monday, we were talking about when is it appropriate or when do you know when to move fish. They were talking specifically about breeding fish and when do you move fish fry from one tank to the next. And that was really a conversation about, can you potentially stunt the growth of your fish? And you can. So the example that I use is I breed peacock cichlids, and the way that I breed them is I usually throw a female in a 10-gallon, let her spit out the fry, leave the female in for a couple weeks after that just so she can eat and relax and not have to worry about being chased around by the male after she just was holding fry for 3 weeks. So after a couple weeks, out she goes, and then I just deal with the fry. Usually I start them out in a 10-gallon. The mistake that some people make is it doesn't appear as though the fish require a larger tank very, very quickly because they're not growing all that fast. Especially, I'm using peacock cichlids, African cichlids as an example. The problem is the reason why they're not growing to their full potential, the rate at which they're growing is not their full potential, is because they're in a smaller tank. And I've done that before, especially with the Eureka Reds, where I left them in a 10-gallon a little bit too long. And then I realized, you know what? They were in here too long, and now their growth is not optimal. I try to get them out, but sometimes the damage is already done, and they really never grow to their full size. So it's absolutely possible to have fish in a smaller tank, and it just seems like they're growing slow. And like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, I put in this fish, and it's in a certain size tank, and it doesn't seem to be requiring a larger tank until you realize, oh, you know what? It did require a larger tank. It's just, it stunted their growth a little bit. The best example that I think I have is I had some Chinese algae eaters, and they were in maybe a 29-gallon. I had a group of like 3 or 4, and they never seemed to they were in there for maybe a year and a half, and they were only maybe 3.5 inches or so, and I'm like, okay, well, these are fine in here. Well, something happened. I think I broke the 29-gallon down, and I was like, where am I going to put these Chinese algae eaters? So I threw them in the 150. Within 6 months, they were this big. They were a full 7 inches. And it really dawned on me at that point. I'm like, wow, you know what? Yeah, they were sitting in this 29-gallon, and it seemed on the surface that they were okay. But as soon as I put them in that larger tank, and the competition for food was even more intense in the 150 than it was in the 29, because in the 29, it was more of a community tank. In the 150, there were all kinds of cichlids in there, and so they were just snapping up the food left and right. But yeah, there is definitely something to that. Let's see here. Ibisam7, thank you so much for the super chat. Stacking 75s. Current is busy planted established community tank. Think new one will be a single species. Which one would you put on top in your opinion? Current is a busy planted established community tank. Whew. I don't know. That's a good question. I think it comes down to which one do you want to, think about it this way. If you were going to sit in front of your double stand 75, which one would you want to see more? It depends on where it's at. So if you're sitting on a couch and you're just kind of looking over, you're probably going to have a better vantage point of the one on the bottom. If you are in a room where you're primarily going to be standing, then the one on top. So the way when I built a lot of our double stands, I put a lot of thought into it, and that was really the thought that I used is, okay, when I'm sitting down, I want the tank on the lower half to be, or the lower part to be easily visible. When I'm standing, I want the tanks on top to be kind of like the middle of the tank right at eye level. I thought that would be cool, and it worked out fairly well. So if it's one of those things where sometimes you're going to be standing, sometimes sitting, 50% of the time, it doesn't matter. But if you're always going to be sitting, then it's like, okay, well, which fish are you going to be more excited to see, right? I mean, I know their fish are kind of like our children. We don't want to admit that some tanks are more fun to look at than others, but they are. So it doesn't really matter. It's just, it's your personal preference. All right, what you got?
Oh, Andy says, I need one of those.
One of what?
GWA's Greenwater Aquarius Society shirts.
They
usually have them, don't they?
I don't know if they will at this one because it's been so long, but usually they have a Greenwater Aquarius Society table there, and they sell the shirts and have information, and there's nice people there. And if you're in the area, right after the swap, they're going to have their monthly meeting. And so if it's something that you're interested in, you're in the area and you're like, oh yeah, I could go to these once a month or once every couple months, and you want to be part of the meeting, that can be a lot of fun too. Those are really fun meetings. Yeah.
I have another one.
You do.
You have a really cool name, Fluffy Macumber. I love that. Anyways, have you ever had goby fish?
Yes. So I'm just trying to think of how many. We've had the
Grumpies.
Yeah, which were the Henechuensis, right?
Awesome
so
fish.
Those, and we still have a couple. They're really old in the 75.
They are old.
I feel
they got
bad
gray
because
beards. They match
yeah,
you.
they're at this point they're kind of getting a little crooked looking. We just have a few males left, and they don't move gracefully as it is. And now they're like, I'm gonna go ahead and go over here and eat some food.
You're so cute.
But they're awesome, and they're not terribly aggressive. And then the Siphodon, the blue neon gobies, we've had those. We have some of those in the Guppy Paradise tank, the 20 long.
Yeah.
Those are cool. They're a little bit more reclusive than the Henechuensis that we have. And then we are working on another type of goby here that we're going to be showcasing pretty soon. So hopefully the next, maybe give it 2 or 3 more weeks, we've got another one that we're going to be talking about here. But yeah, freshwater gobies are some of my favorite. I've always said if I were doing saltwater, it'd just be a goby tank. That's what I would want. I just think they're so silly and so goofy. Rhinogobius, by the way, Henechuensis is the ones that we had in the 75. We had a big group of those. We had a big group of those in a 10-gallon. They were just the silliest fish. They would form what we call goby piles. Yeah. Where you'd clean the tank, and then they would it was almost like a goby pyramid. They'd pile on top of each other.
Yeah, they were like
even the males in a 10-gallon, they would just be like, they'd open their mouth and kind of show off their side. I don't think they ever even came into contact with one another. Just like, I've got a bigger mouth. No, I do. Okay, fine, you do. Bye. That was the extent of their male showing off to one another dominance. Yep.
Oh. Matthew does stuff. He's got to go by.
Peace out.
You got to go do stuff, Matthew?
Thanks you were here. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being here. Ricky, what's up? Hey, guys. Was lurking doing some stuff around the house. Just glad there wasn't a date night like last week. I just said that, and I hope that nobody else heard that comment that you made that you didn't like your date night last week and that it was the worst thing ever and that you were really dreading it. And
did not say that. He did not
say that. He said, the date night was incredibly awesome. I loved it very much, but it's also nice to be here. Hopefully I can do date night at least 3 times a month on Wednesdays, is what you said, right? Mm-hmm. Something like that. Let's see here. Jackie says, oh, we're getting a storm. So my internet is going in and out. That's frustrating. We're supposed to get rain here tonight, too. It's been a little while.
Yeah.
Yep. So let's see here. Freshwater facet. What's your favorite fish that you are selling at the swap this weekend? That's a great question. So at the swap this weekend, what am I selling that I love? Well, we've got the shell dwellers, the multis, that are in our 50-gallon lowboy that I show off all the time. We have
Classic.
the Neolampologus similis, which are kind of like the Maltese, only colored slightly differently. Love both of those. Those are great fish. The Cyprochroma leptosoma, those are the ones that are blue that get the yellow tails. And what's cool about those is you can combine the Cyprochromis with the Maltese, provided that you have the height. So maybe like a 55-gallon or larger. Those are a great combination. We're also bringing the Caudopunctatus, the Caudopunks. Those are and we've done species profiles on all these fish. Those are the silver ones. We've got the orange dorsal variety. So they've got the more deep yellow fins, dorsal and tail fin, which are really pretty. So I like those a lot. We're bringing Tiger Limia, which is a great fish that I don't see around a lot. Even in the local fish stores, Tiger Limia are a live bearer. And they kind of take on this greenish hue to them. And again, if you were to look at our fish room tours, the Tiger Limia are in one of the 20 gallons on the part ones, right? So if you go to the last fish room tour in January, the part one, in a 20 gallon, there's a big giant piece of driftwood, and the Tiger Limia are really cool. So that's a great alternative if you're like, okay, I've done mollies, I've done swords, sword tails, I've done guppies, I've done endlers, I want a different type of live bear. Tiger Limia are really cool fish. And then we're going to bring large bristlenose. So a lot of times people are looking for bristlenose because they've got some cichlid tanks and they can't have the little 2 or 3 inch ones. We got some big ones. Like we've got some males that are full on like, yeah. So we've got some of those. We are bringing some black mollies, which are really cool. What else are we bringing? Oh, the Pseudotropheus celosi. So those are Mbuna cichlids, and those are the ones I always recommend, especially for people who are just getting into Mbuna cichlids, the African cichlids, because they're 2 different colors. The females get kind of a nice, pretty yellow color, but the males get these alternating stripes of vertical stripes of dark blue and light blue, and those are really cool fish. So we've got a decent group of those. And blue dream shrimp, we're bringing those. Those are my favorite of the Charidinas, the blue dreams. I like those the most. Those are the mostest. And then I feel like we're forgetting stuff because we're bringing more than that. Eight or nine. Yeah.
9. I think there's 9 different ones.
So yeah, but they're all, we're bringing some fun stuff. I hope people enjoy it.
Finn says, don't be selling any of my hyphen variatus.
No. Like I said, we had some kind of an issue in that tank, and luckily I think we still have a male and a couple females, and I'm hoping they repopulate. I don't know what happened in that tank because there was nothing inherently wrong. All the water was testing fine. I don't even know what happened because I don't even remember the fish. They just started going missing. And there's nothing in that tank. It's covered. And we got a bunch of basically brown Neocaridina shrimp and a couple plecos, but I don't know what was going on in that tank. So I'm hoping we can repopulate. You would have loved this. In one of the fish stores that we went to, they had a type of hyphen, almost like a type of hyphen koi platy. And I wanted it, but this was a good fish store. And they're like, hey, listen, we didn't get a chance to turn the lights off on this tank, but we're treating it right now because some of the fish came in, they didn't look so good. Come back, if you want to come back in a couple days or a week or so, we could see how they're doing. And I was tempted to be like, yeah, I know they're sick. I've got a quarantine tank. Let me just go ahead and give it a try because they were so cool. I'd never seen them before. They were basically like hyphen koi platy looking. They were cool. They were really cool. All right, let's see.
There was a question here, and now I can't find it. I saw it pop up a few times, asking, and I'm sorry, I can't find your name, but I think the gist was you were wondering what fish to put in a 24-gallon cube, and I believe you wanted to know Asian fish like Rasboras or something like that. What would you suggest to put in a 24-gallon cube? By the way, 24-gallon cube.
Yeah. I like that. 24-gallon cube is
I love one.
That's probably a nice size tank. I'm imagining it's probably what, 20?
We saw one of those at a fish store.
It's probably like 20 by 20, right? 20 inches by 20 inches maybe, and I don't know, 12 inches tall, something like that, or maybe it's 18 by 18 by...
It was a cube.
12 or
so. It wouldn't be.
Okay, fine. Whatever. But then 16 by 16 by 16, that would be my guess. Something like that. I don't know. Point is, that's going to be a cool tank. Rasboras?
Maybe. I think that was one of the questions.
All right. So you got a lot of options when it comes to Rasboras. We have the lamp eye Rasbora. So it depends on the colors that you're looking for. The lamp eye Rasboras are cool because they're silver. they get about maybe a top out at an inch, and they get these super bright blue eyes, which are so pretty. You could see those fish from across the room. If you get a big enough group of maybe 12 to 15 and you put them in that tank, they tend to hang out together fairly tightly. So some fish that are supposed to be schooling are like, okay, well, yeah, they kind of hang out, but they often just kind of go all over the place. In my experience, the lamp eye Rasboras in general tend to hang out enough as it is, but the lamp eyes especially, they've always schooled pretty tightly for us, so that would be cool. You got the pork chop Rasboras again. They've got the nice pretty orange. And ours, I don't remember if it was the fish room tour that we did where we broke it up into like 7 parts, because I don't know what I was thinking, but there was a part where we were showing out the 29. It was probably like part 5, but the Rasbora hets that we had were almost turning purple around the bottom half of their body. The top half was red, and they had like the black center, and they were so pretty. If you want to go crazy, but you'd have to go really small fish, you'd have to go really super ultra nano with this, the Mira Rasbora, M-E-R, Mira A-H. Yeah. They are very small. They're maybe going to max out at 3/4 of an inch, and I mean, they're tiny.
They're tiny.
But when you get them in a big group, like in a 24-gallon, you could probably put 30 of them in there. If you really look at them, they have amazing color. And of course, you've got the chili Rasboras, which are really pretty. You could do a big giant group of celestial pearl danios. That would be amazing. There's so many options when it comes to smaller fish. The furcata rainbows would give you a bunch of color. And now they would be really active, though. They would be a much more active fish than the ones we've talked about so far. It just depends on what else you want to put, right? So if you're thinking, okay, I got this 24-gallon, and if your centerpiece fish is going to be maybe like a honey gourami or a pistos or rams, then the Mira Rasboras aren't going to work, because those Mira Rasboras are going to get eaten. Maybe not by a honey, well, even by a honey gourami, they probably would. Yeah. If you were going to do shrimp, let's say, and snails and the Mira Rasboras and maybe some small Cory cats, that could work out pretty well.
Or you could do a gang of Cory cats.
A gang of Cory cats would be fun. Absolutely.
Super fun.
Definitely. Scott, thank you so much for the super chat. If I was going to have 2 species of Corys in a 40-gallon community, is there a minimum of each species, or do they all play nice? Love your work. So in the ones that I've kept together, when I've mixed them, they seem to more or less get along. I don't really know if they hung out a lot together, but I don't remember there ever being a huge issue. So, I mean, there are so many cool options. I personally like the orange laser Corys. The what are the ones we have in the 75? The ones with the orange top.
Oh,
is it Rudolphi? No.
I
can't remember. Maybe somebody knows what I'm talking about. They're the Cory cats that get a little bit of black on the top, but then they have a kind of orange by their face. I always know their name, and now I can't think of it.
I know.
It's going to drive me crazy. I thought they were Rudolphi. Maybe. So, but right. The orange lasers are really cool too. But yeah, I like all the Corys are cool. So you almost can't go wrong. All right, let's see what we got here. Snowball and Strike the Budgies?
Budgies? It's a bird.
Oh, okay. Could you do a video about your favorite fish based on the colors they are in category? Oh, yeah. Yeah, we could do that.
Oh, that would be
right
fun.
There. Put that. So we have a book of ideas. Put that in the book of ideas. It's like our burn book, but we don't burn it because we need it, because it's our ideas. Yeah. What movie is that from? Oh, don't you?
I'm not gonna say anything.
Just put it in the burn book. Yeah. Who knows?
Carbs.
Yeah.
I'll just have cheese fries.
Yeah. All right. Let's see who gets it first. We'll see. See if people are really paying attention. They're all zoned out. Like, oh, it was a movie quote. Dang it! I didn't catch that. All right, you wrote it down in the burn book?
Got it right here.
All right, cool. All right, let's see here. What else we got? David Glass says, Primetime Aquatics, do you have any suggestions on how to raise pH? So, there's a couple things that you can do that might help pH, and that is usually centered around getting your KH a little bit higher. That means doing things like possibly adding some carob sea cichlid mix into your substrate, or making that the substrate. Aragonite can help raise KH, and usually these things, when you raise your KH, your carbonate hardness, that's going to help you buffer your pH up a little bit. You can try different types of rocks. We add a lot of flagstone to our fish tanks. It doesn't do a lot for us because our water is already got pretty high calcium carbonate hardness and already has a high pH. But all of these things are not things I would just chuck in the tank, raise the pH with fish already in there, and then all of a sudden they're stressed out. It's something I might set the tank up and see how it's doing. So, okay, I added the carob sea cichlid mix. Maybe I added some aragonite. Maybe I've got some flagstone in the tank, and then see where you're at with that. There's also cichlid buffers. So the other thing that you can do is, I know Fritz Aquatics, their channel sponsor, they have cichlid buffer mix, and it tells you right on the package, add this many tablespoons per certain volume of water. And I think that's based on RO water. So that, so you have a really good mix. So you'd have to kind of experiment with it and see, okay, how many tablespoons do I have to add per volume to get my pH to buffer at a certain level? But those other things can certainly help. Those are the ones.
Those are Adolfos.
Adolphis, yeah. Rudolphi. I was close.
Adolfo.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Adolphis, yeah.
Those are cool.
Yep. I was pretty close. We have those in our 75 gallon. Those are the Cory cats. Those are really awesome.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here.
Sturbas are cool.
Stir by Cory's, yeah. I like those a lot. Very awesome. Also, what are the ones we have in the 20 gallon? Habrosus Cory's. They don't get super big, and those are really fun looking. Let's see here. The curls, please help. I have a flower horn and a Texas cichlid, both big size, above 8 inches, and I have both in a 90 gallon with separator. Any way I can have them together? The short answer is no. So I wish I had better news for you, but flower horns definitely are going to be fished. Yeah, Noelle, thank you so much, because she said the same thing. The Adelphi. So yeah, the flower horns are a fish that generally are not going to. They're not going to play nice. It's just better to have them on their own. Most likely, even if you tried it, you're going to have a fish that gets wiped out much faster than you realize a fish can get wiped out. So I personally wouldn't try it. The fish nerd was, I think, the first one. Mean Girls.
Yep,
Noelle said it too. Mean Girls. Yep. Alec also came up with the Cory cat name. Love it. Mm-hmm. Freshwater Facet. Mean Girl. All right. We got a lot of Mean Girls people here.
All right.
Let's see
Mean
here.
Girls, of course.
Amanda says, will you be continuing the science videos? I will be. I'm probably going to wait until the fall, because what tends to happen in the summertime for most fish content is, we've been doing this now for a number of years, where it's like September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, June, and then it goes July, August. So basically everybody's doing other things. And so I'd like to wait to do those videos until we're what I call back in fish season, but I have not forgotten the series. I do have some things. It is a little bit harder. And by the way, if any of you ever come across articles, or especially like science articles that are related to freshwater fish keeping, and you think might be interesting, you want me to cover that, send it to me. I would be happy to put that in my folder of science video things that I want to do. So I will put that on my computer folder, my burn folder.
Your burn folder?
My burn folder, yeah. These days, that's what it would be.
All right.
So definitely. Yeah, I'm going to continue that series.
Cool. All right, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Alex Cintron wants to know, does a background really affect the colors of African cichlids? I keep hearing a back wallpaper will have them color up over my normal white wall. Petco person told me this.
Your Petco person gave you good advice.
Yep.
Absolutely. And in fact, I did a video on, it was more substrate related, and how substrate can have a major impact on fish color, but background every bit as much. So most African cichlids are going to show better if your background is darker in color. So that's the reason why, at least in all of my tanks, I painted just about every single tank. I painted that with a black background. Now, some of them have a 3D background that's also on the darker side, but yeah, I have almost all of them are darker background, because most fish, not all, but most of them, especially the African cichlids, are going to show nicer on the darker background. Now, that doesn't mean all of them, because, for instance, I mentioned this a while back, we have rainbow cichlids, and these rainbow cichlids actually show nicer on lighter substrate, and with a lighter background, they get more yellowy. We put them in a darker tank, and they started to go kind of almost like a tannish brown. They're really kind of not attractive at all the way that we currently have them. So what's so funny?
So Finn says, hey Noel, I'll grab some of the rest while I'm in Chicago before he kills them all. Talking about your high fins.
You know what? If you're in town, you can have them, because I would rather see fin wiggles. They are yours.
Save the high fins.
Because I don't know what's going on, and it really is frustrating, because those are probably my favorite live bears that I've had, and I don't know what is happening with those fish.
They don't like him.
Well, what's not cool is, and I don't know, I really don't know what's going on, because there's nothing I can really hide, right? I show all our fish, I show all of our tanks, so it's not going to be a secret when I do my next fish room tour. I'm like, oh yeah, that's where the hyphen platies used to be. Well, what happened to them? So we started with, I don't remember, maybe 4 or so. I don't remember exactly. And then we got to a bunch. Like the last fish room tour that we did, this was back in January. I think we probably had at least 12 in the tank. They were all healthy. They were happy. They were, the males are, the ratios still look good. The males were chasing the females around like, hey, let's have some more babies. The babies were healthy. They were eating. And then all of a sudden, over the course of about 8 weeks, something, and nothing was added to that tank. Nothing. And there were no new fish added around the tank where we could have transferred disease. It's one of those anomalies. Whips World, I never saw Mean Girls. I don't know, man. It's a very quotable movie. That's all I can tell you.
It is.
Yeah, it's not something you want to watch like every day, but I mean, if you watch it, there are some funny parts, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yep. Gwen Duncan, can 2 male Apistogramma work in a planted 20 long with guppies and Daniels? Maybe, but I probably wouldn't do it, because I don't want to run the risk of having my 20 long be a source of stress. So I generally stay away from that in a 20 long. I would just as soon put a male in there. If you want to put a female in there as well, because some Apistogramma, the females can look pretty nice. So we had Apistogramma penduro, and the females also looked really cool. I'm thinking maybe the Borellii females look pretty decent as well. Some of you are more Apisto experts. Even the Cockatoides, I thought the females looked okay, right? They weren't like nearly as good as the males in terms of the way they look, but they were decent. I would probably just do one. Could it work? Maybe, if you break up the line of sight, but then if it doesn't work, and let's face it, Apistos are not cheap. So if you go to a pet store and you're paying $20 for a full-grown male, now you've paid $40, and now you've got to separate them or bring one back. It's just not worth the stress.
All right. Swim Forward says, found 4 baby panda Corys in my tank last week. Was a bit shocked and thrilled. No one in my family cares, so thought I would share here.
That's
Congratulations.
Awesome. Panda Corys are great too.
Baby panda Corys. Oh, yeah. So cute.
Yeah, those are really cool. And the fact that you've got the little baby ones swimming around, they are baby. So here's a fun story for you. And the members know this because I shared the whole thing. I was doing a members only video, and I was talking about, I don't remember what I was talking about, but I was showing the 29 gallon that we just updated. And maybe I was talking about the mess that it was with the hair algae and everything. And I noticed while I was shooting the video that there were eggs everywhere. Our albino Cory cats, there were eggs on the back of the glass, on the front of the glass, on the side of the glass, on all the leaves. So I'm like, oh, cool. So I'm, going through the members video. I'm like, all right, I'm going to put all these things. I was showing them how I suck them up with a scrape them off, suck them up with a turkey baster, squirt them into an egg tumbler. And I did all that stuff, and I'm tumbling them. They're hatched out. I'm like, yeah, they're so cute, little baby Corys. Hook up the breeder box. So now I got the air. It's one of the ones that hang on the side, but it circulates through. Put the little sponge in there so that the babies can't escape. I had like 50 baby Cory cats in there. They were so cute because they just kind of squiggle around the bottom of this breeder box. Well, I didn't actually do a good job of setting up the breeder box because I had the flow going in a little too strong. So what it was doing is, luckily it wasn't overflowing out the back, but what it does is there's an overflow out the middle. Now these Cory cats were very tiny, and they must have decided, freedom. So after a day, I'm like, maybe I don't know what's going on. I think our fish room might be haunted or something. I look, there isn't 50 Cory cats anymore. There's like 6. I'm like, what is going on? I didn't notice that was the issue. I'm like, seriously, are they going through this little sponge? Next day, I realized the part in the center was dripping over. I went from 50 little baby Cory cats to 0 little baby Cory cats in 48 hours.
So baby Cory cats.
It was horrible.
And hyphen variatus.
I'm beginning to think maybe I'm not a very good fish keeper. Stop listening to me because, oh man. But anyway, congratulations. I'm glad your 4 have survived. Hold on, Naja says, my husband keeps bugging me to ask you, Jason, if you'd be into making a video about anything in a fish room that can harm humans, like getting chems in the eyes or a cut, etc. Put it in the burn book. That's another one. You guys keep coming up with them.
Like dangers in fish keeping sort of thing?
Dangers in fish keeping. We'll knock one of those out. That's a good one. That's not one we've done before, so absolutely. If you guys ever have stuff, I tell this to the members all the time too. If you ever have videos, subjects that I haven't covered or I haven't done it in a way that is good, just be like, hey, could you cover this? Or have you thought about doing that? We get a lot of our video ideas come from questions in our comment sections. So when people ask questions and it's like, well, I could answer this for the 13th time in the last 2 weeks, or I could just do a video and hopefully it will be valuable to more people.
Yeah.
So if you ever got something, leave it here. We can put it in the book and add it to the thing. Delta Charlie, thank you so much for the super chat. Keep doing what you do. Please give this to your boys as a tip for all their work in your fish room. Wow, thank you so much. They will appreciate that. They sure will. And Eli was down there, our 13-year-old. Today was the long day for him. He was down there for like 4 hours doing fish tank cleaning stuff. And he prides himself on being like the king of duckweed removal.
He hates duckweed.
He hates it. He is very, very anti-duckweed because
that's our boy.
Duckweed's fine, but it's not fine when you have so much of it you can't feed the fish, or it really starts blocking the light and stuff to the point where it's like, this doesn't look good, or it starts, especially with sponge filters, if now you're not getting the surface agitation that you need for really good gas exchange, then you start to see green hair algae.
Yeah.
So he knows, got to get the duckweed out. And some days it's better than others for him. Yep. Finn Wiggles, thank you so much for the super chat. Where are your hyphen platies? Finn Wiggles took them. You can have them.
I have
if you're ever in town, I promise. If I still have them, they're yours. You do, and then I hope you breed them, and then post the pictures all over Facebook, and you can hyphen platy shame me.
That's right.
Be like, I got these from Primetime Aquatics. He couldn't seem to do anything with them, and now I've got 600 of them. The only thing I ask is at least give me 6 back so I can try it again and hopefully do a better job.
I don't know. I think she'd probably...
Yeah, just keep them. It's better off for everybody.
Fill out like this really lengthy form.
They probably deserve it. Ricky, thank you so much for the super chat and the sponge finger. Love the sponge fingers. That was great when you were a kid. You'd go to a sporting event, you'd get the #1 sponge finger, you'd bring it home because it was your souvenir, and then 2 days later, I don't know, the dog chewed it up or it was stuck under the bed. You find it 5 years later, like, why do I have this thing? It just goes right in the garbage, but you wanted it so much for that one baseball game. Let's see here. Fish fan, 20-gallon long. Yeah, another 20-gallon long owner. 20-gallon longs are... That's the stuff right there. If you've never had one and you are more of a small tank person because that's what you enjoy, that's what you can maintain, that's what you have space for, a 20 long is just great. It's got the same length and width as a 29. It's just a little bit shorter. I just like the aesthetics of it. I like the way it looks. I like the function that it serves in our fish room. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think we have 8 right now, but we've had up to maybe 12 or so. So I like 20 longs. Good stuff.
Oh, Carlos, that's so mean. You know what he said?
Something mean?
I don't have a single piece of living duckweed in my entire house.
We'll change that. You know what's going to happen? You're going to come down here.
Don't go to sleep tonight, Carlos.
I know you said you might not be going to Aquashella, but if you ever come this way, like, hey, man, can I pick up some of those so-and-so fish? Sure, no problem. With a big old bag of duckweed. Like, yeah, have fun getting these shell dwellers out, buddy. You're going to have to pour the duckweed in your tank, and shell dwellers don't eat duckweed.
Girl.
So have fun with that. We're gonna convert you to a duckweed fish room, because once you've got a duckweed fish room, it's... good luck getting it. So, I could see if it was 1 or 2 tanks. Like, oh, yeah, the duckweed got my tank. I took care of it. When you start getting a bunch, the only reason we don't have duckweed in some of our tanks is because whatever fish are in there eats the duckweed. Otherwise, it's in there. Love from India. Learning a lot from you. Thank you so much. Let's see. But hold on. I'm going to mess this up. I'm sorry, but I want to try.
Okay.
Abhijit? Abhijit? I'm trying.
Correct him.
Yeah, correct me. Phonetically spell it.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you. Glad you're here. What time is it in India? It's got to be, is it morning time? Like, is it far enough? It probably is like morning time, right? Late morning?
Might be tomorrow.
Yeah, it's already tomorrow.
So everybody seems to recognize this glass in various different colors from their childhood. This is the Fostoria Americana glass. Yes, okay. My sister deals in glassware, so I typically know the name of a glass that I'm drinking out of, but I'm glad everybody recognizes it from their childhood.
Nice. Cheryl also said that she'd be really interested in cautions of aquarium keeping as well. That isn't a subject covered too often. Yeah. We will definitely do it. Mm-hmm. Let's see here. Huckster123, would you start a saltwater tank? You know, maybe. I don't know if I would I show it on the channel a lot? Because I know most of you are like, saltwater. Probably not. I mean, I'm assuming most of you are not like really saltwater people. Like I said, if I did, there'd be one of two things. Well, there are actually one of three things. Gobies or jellyfish or seahorses. So it'd be one of those. And I know you can't mix those. At least I'm pretty sure you can't. But that would be the deal. What's up?
Noelle says, the only thing cooler than you using that glass is that you know the name. Thank you very much.
Wow. All right.
Thanks for the appreciation over there that I don't get from over here.
So this is also a collectible. It's an Under Armour hydration bottle. Not sponsored, but
Walmart.
You do this, and it's like a switch bottle.
Yeah, that's not very vintage at all.
Yeah, but it's a switch bottle. Like, hey man, what's up? Right? How cool. I mean, yeah, you can sip stuff out of that other thing, sparkly thing, but you don't have a switch bottle. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see here. We're going to do a couple more questions because it's getting late, and then we'll call it a night and let everybody get to this thing called sleeping. Luby's Planet. I love my 20 long for all these reasons. Currently housing my Maltese in it, and they're breeding like guppies. That is very cool. And I'm telling you, it's Lake Tanganyika fish generally don't ship well. So if you've got a local fish store where you can say, hey man, I've got Maltese. A lot of local fish stores like fish like that coming from people around the neighborhood because they know if they order them from a wholesaler and the wholesaler had to bring them in from somewhere else, all that travel, the difference in water parameters, temperature fluctuations, by the time they get there, sometimes it's not the greatest thing in the world. So if you've got a local fish store, hopefully they will like the fact that you're breeding them. All right, let's see here. Let's do a couple more. Regina says, fish tuberculosis. One of my fish keeping friends got it. Got the tuberculosis from the fish. Could that happen? Or just the fish got it? Or
did the fish get it? Fish TB?
Yeah, fish TB, you can't. Once the fish have TB, that's not a treatable thing. It's very hard to treat. We talk about it in microbiology. It's a very hard thing to treat in human beings. I think it's mostly pointless to try to treat it in fish. Unfortunately, if you know your fish have TB in a tank, you might as well just isolate that tank. If you want to let the fish live out their life in that tank, do not use any nets, any water changing equipment. Don't put anything in that tank that is going to go into another tank. If you plan to use that tank for other fish, I would get rid of the substrate, the decorations, the filter media, bleach the heck out of that filter because the TB it's just, you're not treating that. There's no antibiotics for fish TB that are going to be effective. It's hard enough in humans because even in human beings, the antibiotic treatments can take months and months and months, 6 to 9 months. And then the fish TB, because of all the antibiotic use in the aquarium industry, it's a bad thing. It's a bad thing. So Gus says, my pearl gourami randomly became nocturnal. All the water parameters perfect. He is in a heavily planted 29 gallon with some cardinal touches. Do you know what could have caused this? Nocturnal, huh? I don't know what's going on there. So when you say nocturnal, I mean, are all the lights off? Because most fish, you turn off all the lights and they can't see and they just naturally kind of fall into their little fish stupor until the lights kind of come back on. So one way to deal with that is just make sure the lights in the room are off. And that should kind of get things back on track. That would be my suggestion for that. Kathy says, how many Scarlet Badis go in a 10-gallon with coolie loaches, heavily planted, 2 coconut hut, a cave with 20-gallon hang-on back filter, and a sponge filter? How many Scarlet Badis in a 10? I can tell you what I would do, again, just to be on the safe side. Maybe, and I'm not a Scarlet Badis expert, I liked having a pair, a male and a female. We had them in, gosh, I think we had it in a 3.5 long. So a 3.5 long was just as long as a 10, and obviously a Scarlet Badis is going to use the length and not so much the height anyway. That worked out fine for a while. I think, what happened with the female? Did she jump? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
I think the female wound up, we left a little tiny space and the female jumped. And females are not easy to find with the Scarlet Badis. So if you can find a pair, that would be kind of cool in a 10-gallon. I think, I haven't tried to keep multiple males together. I've always just had one male, or we had the pair. So I'm not sure how many males I'd put in a 10 heavily planted. Maybe 2 or 3, but I wouldn't go much more than that. Let's see here. Freshwater facet. Thoughts on getting driftwood or rocks from local riverbanks or lakes? Too big of a risk? Not with the rocks. I think because the rocks aren't as absorbent, they're a little bit easier to disinfect, whether you're using a 10% bleach solution. You scrub them down with kind of a Brillo pad sort of thing. Get all the dirt, hose them down, soak them in a bucket full of 10% bleach solution. You could use hydrogen peroxide. That usually does the trick. Leave them out in the sun, leave them to dry for a couple weeks. Usually that does pretty well. The problem with the driftwood is it retains a lot of water. And people do it. Don't get me wrong. People do driftwood from lakes, and a lot of people have no problems. I just tend not to risk it. One, because there's not a lot of places for us to get driftwood that would work long term in the tank, but sometimes it just brings in funky things. So I wouldn't probably have as many problems with the rocks, but driftwood is just not my thing. People do it. I just don't.
It doesn't keep me from collecting massive amounts of it, though.
Yeah, that's true. But most of the stuff that you get winds up in the yard is yard decoration or something.
Yes, for sure.
Kind All Might, is it safe or good to buy fish from eBay? Depends. It depends on where you're buying them from. So there are some people on eBay who are very conscientious, and they make a decent amount of money from doing that. So they want to make sure that the fish that they're sending are of good quality. They know how to ship them. And then every once in a while, you're going to get people on eBay who don't have a lot of experience shipping fish, and maybe they're breeding stuff and they don't quite know how to cull fish and make sure that they're not sending stuff that maybe isn't 100% great quality. For sure, what you're going to want to do is vet the people who are selling the fish. They have a lot of reviews. Are people happy? But I mean, that's all you can really do. Aquabit is another place you can go. Flip Aquatics, if you're looking for smaller fish, is a great source. If you're looking for cichlids, you've got the Wet Spot that you could try out. I mean, I tend to want to go with places that have a ton of experience and a reputable business. Ohio Fish Rescue is here. What's up? Hey, are you going to be going to Chicago? Big Rich, are you going to hit the Aquashella next month? How many Arapaima can I put? Hold on, I lost it.
Can I fit in a swimming pool? In
a swimming pool? I do at least 100. 100 Arapaima in a kiddie pool. And I think as long as the gills are wet, you're fine. If they poke holes in the swimming pool, I also heard that they can go without water pretty much indefinitely, and they just start walking on land. You'll be fine. Do you have Arapaima? Do you have Arapaima in that swimming pool? Because I don't remember now. It's been a while since I've been over there, so I don't remember. I feel like I should. That'd be pretty cool. Yeah. You got to get sharks with laser beams on their head. Yeah. That'll just change the whole game at that point.
Oh, he says, of course, I'm going to Chicago.
All right. Well, that's cool. Then I can't wait to see you, man. I'm glad you're going to be headed out this way. It'll be fun. It'll be a good time. I think you'll enjoy all the things we have planned, too, because it's right up your alley. So very cool. I'm glad you're going to be there. It'll be fun. Fun to hang out. All right. Let's see here. Gus asks, what are your guys' favorite floaters?
Oh, I love floaters. Probably the Salvinia minima. But I did get red root floaters for the first time, and ooh, yummy.
Yeah.
And of course, frog bit. It's really cool. And water lettuce, not so much, because I don't put it outside. It's extremely invasive, extremely. So even just the thought of like little birds or something taking it, and because it can transfer to the pond way out and back, I wouldn't do that because it's really bad. So,
but I like the water lettuce.
I know it looks really cool, but I refuse to put it outside.
All right, fine. Well, I like water lettuce. It's my thing. Freshwater Facet, thank you so much for the super chat. Ha ha ha, Joanna. I too love driftwood for decor in tanks or out. You guys are the best. Thank you for all your advice. Well, thank you for being here. Appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much. All right, everybody. I think we're going to call it a night because it's getting late and people want to go night-night. And it's been fun. You guys had a lot of awesome questions. We got to add some videos to the burn book over here that we'll get out here in the next couple months, I hope.
Yeah.
Definitely. So the plan, I hope to see some of you on Sunday at the Greenwater Aquarium Society. And by the way, if you do go and you see us, stop by and say hello, because the worst thing that could ever happen is you guys stop by, be like, oh yeah, you were busy, so I didn't stop by and say hello. Nope, definitely stop by and say hello. Would love to see you there. And we will be back next Wednesday at 8 o'clock in the evening. And you guys have a great week. We'll see you later.
Bye.